It was finally the day of the big shoot. I needed to make sure everything was ready. Lights? Check. Camera? Check. Microphone? Check. Confident attitude fitting for the director of a major motion picture? Check.
Carol wants to make blockbuster movies someday, but for now, she's happy making a music video for our class project.
As the director, Kara is information central. Her vision will guide the look of her video. Her ears, its sound. Her decisions, its success. But to make it all work, she's going to be depending on her own information central, her brain and nervous system. Because this isn't just showtime. This is the human body in action.
Everything had to be just right. I wanted to communicate the wild energy, the raw emotion, the electric charge racing through the guitar. Plus, I didn't want to humiliate myself by making a really rotten video.
Joy, sadness, embarrassment, pride. Your emotions are just one fascinating aspect of the most complex part of the human body, the brain. With it, we reason and think, love and create, remember and dream. It receives and interprets all the wondrous information conveyed by our senses, our sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. It tells our muscles to move, our hearts to beat, our lungs to breathe, and much, much more.
The brain is the boss, but it'd be nowhere without its partners, the spinal cord and the associated nerves. Together, they make up the vast communication network that runs throughout your entire body called the nervous system. What travels on this network of cells and nerves? Messages in the form of electrical impulses. They're carried by billions and billions of nerve cells, also known as neurons.
In some ways, neurons are like any other human cell. They have the same basic structures: a membrane, cytoplasm, and a nucleus that controls the activities of the cell. But in many ways, neurons are special. Every other cell in your body will be replaced by new cells sooner or later, but not your neurons. Most of them are lifers. You still have most of the neurons you were born with, and chances are you'll have them till you're old and gray.
Want the skinny on how neurons measure up? Here's the long and short of it. A single neuron in your thigh can be up to 1 meter long, but most are so small that hundreds could fit on the point of a pencil. Long or short, they're all stretched thin. A nerve cell is way skinnier than a hair on your head.
The cell body is one of the things that set neurons apart. At both ends of the cell body are two unique structures: dendrites, which carry messages toward the cell body, and the axon, which carries messages away.
Hey, think of it this way. To take in info, dendrites invite. To send info away, take the axon exit. Invite, dendrite. Exit, axon. Get it?
Got it. Most nerve cells function like links in a chain. The impulses enter a neuron through the dendrites, pass through the cell body, and then exit through the axon, passing to another neuron. But unlike chain links, neurons aren't really hooked together. Instead, there's a gap, called a synapse, in between the neurons.
How does the information get across the gap?
As the electrical impulse reaches the end of the axon, it releases a chemical messenger known as a neurotransmitter. The neurotransmitter jumps the synapse to a dendrite on the next nerve cell. There, it's instantly converted back into an electrical impulse in the other nerve cell and continues on its way. Those impulses are traveling fast. They can speed along at more than 400 kilometers per hour.
Just as important as the way a video looks is the way it sounds. I had to make sure I captured every note.
The nervous system captures sight and sound, as well as smell, touch, and taste. through special nerve cells called sensory neurons. How do you know that a flower is purple or that it smells nice? How do you know that a drum is being played or that a puppy is soft? How do you know an apple is crunchy and sweet? Something that awakens your sensory neurons is called a stimulus, like the smell of a flower, the sound of drums, or the taste of fruit. Your sensory neurons are stimulated to collect data and relay it to your spinal cord and brain.
Information also travels in the opposite direction, from the brain, through the spinal cord, to the rest of the body. This information is carried on motor neurons, the masters of the muscles. Right now, Pete's brain is saying, "Bang that drum." The motor neurons zip that command to the right muscles instantaneously, and bingo, he bangs the drum.
Some neurons in the body don't wait for a brain consult. Associative neurons can skip the brain, allowing sensory neurons to talk directly to motor neurons. When sensory neurons detect pain, like, say, touching a hot light, they send a warning to the brain. But before that message can even reach the brain, a separate message takes a shortcut. It hurries through the associative neurons right to the motor neurons. This second message tells your arm muscles to pull back quick. You don't even have to think about it, and you don't get seriously burned. This response, called a reflex, is just one of the many ways the nervous system protects the body.
From your scalp to your toes, neurons have you covered. But some are more central to the action than others. The ones that make up your brain and spinal cord are even called the central nervous system.
Being the director's great. Everybody has to do what you say. All I do is ask, and like magic, it's done. Well, most of the time.
The brain's direction is never questioned. As the command center for the whole body, it generates all decisions. Weighing about the same as a nice-sized melon, about 1.5 kilograms, the human brain contains 10 to 20 billion neurons. Some are white, but a huge majority of neurons are gray, which is why people sometimes call the brain gray matter. Hey, gray matter matters so much, the body protects it with a buffer zone of membranes, fluid, and the thick bones that make up your skull. Now, the brain isn't just one big gray blob. It's divided into two halves, the left and right hemispheres. Scientists believe that the left hemisphere is responsible for analytical thinking, like understanding math and learning to speak, and the right half takes care of abstract thinking, like recognizing colors and playing music.
And get this, when it comes to our physical actions, how we move, the left half of the brain controls the right side of the body, and the right half of the brain controls the left side of the body.
The brain also has three very distinct parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Largest by far is the cerebrum, which makes up more than 80% of the brain's weight. It's the area that issues commands for all sorts of cool stuff, like the ability to move and talk, or to think and reason.
And here's more food for thought. Even though your dog may be pretty smart, he'll never be able to read the label on the dog food can. So what makes the human brain so special? Next to a dog's brain, the outer layer of our brain, also known as the cerebral cortex, looks like it needs ironing. All those folds allow more surface area for neurons. And more neurons, combined with more complex wiring, mean more brain power. What's it powering? Let's take a little tour around the cerebrum and find out.
The cerebrum is laid out like neighborhoods in a well-planned city. The front section of the cerebrum controls reasoning, problem-solving, and physical movement. The top area handles some of our senses, like touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. The side sections of the cerebrum are where we process hearing and parts of our memory. And the very back section is where our brain makes sense out of what we see, our vision. The cerebrum may be the biggest part of the brain, but it's hardly alone. At just 1/8 of its size, the cerebellum is small but significant. Its job is to maintain balance and coordination so you can perform tasks smoothly.
Justin didn't sound too bad, especially considering he'd only been playing the bass for a couple of months. I wondered how he'd learned to play so well.
Playing an instrument takes coordination. At first, it can be hard to learn something new. But as you practice, the better and faster you become.
Does practice really make perfect? In other words, can your brain learn how to do certain tasks better if you repeat them over and over? I've got a busybody experiment to find out. For this experiment, you need a partner. You also need a couple different mazes of similar difficulty. A marker, a stopwatch, a pencil, and a notebook to record your results. The partner is going to time the subject as he tries to make his way through the maze. All set? Great. Then, on your marks, get set, go!
And he's off. Coming into corner number 1, he stumbles. Oh, but it's only a minor setback. His marker is flying now. Ooh, but a small hesitation at corner number 2. Every turn is a new experience, not knowing if each path is a blind alley or the one that will take him to the finish line. He's coming into the home stretch now, and that's it! He successfully tackled maze number 1 with a finish time of 3 minutes 1 second.
Think you could do it better a second time around? Good. Then prepare to enter the same maze again. Ready? Go!
He's off to a good start, already shaving seconds off his time. And he takes the curves with more ease this time.
Not bad. You took 15 seconds off your first try. It certainly seems that some learning is taking place. Ready to see if you're even faster with a third try? Practice pays. Let's enter the maze.
Look at that! He's flying through the maze with ease this time. His marker didn't stop even once.
Whoa, check it out. It's the new time to beat, 28 seconds.
Okay, what can we conclude from our experiment so far?
Well, we can see that his time has improved with each run through the maze. So it looks like repetition may improve learning.
Very good. But here's another question for you. Has repetition helped him learn to do just that particular maze? Or has he learned how to do mazes in general?
Give him some different mazes, and let's find out.
Wow, there's almost no hesitation on these new mazes. Couple of stumbles here and there, but still a marked improvement. How did the times on these new mazes compare to the first time on the first maze?
Check it out. His times are better, even on different mazes.
In conclusion, repetition not only improves the time it takes to do a particular task, but it can also help teach the brain how to do other similar tasks too. Scientists have discovered that the more stimulation, the more stimuli the neurons in the brain receive, the more connections they make. Keeping your brain busy can help you perform better throughout your life.
The editing was the trickiest part of making the video. The school software was a monster. Really cool effects and a great interface, but it crunched up so much memory. I had to save things constantly in case of a crash.
There has never been a computer built with a memory as powerful as the human brain's. Your short-term memory is all the stuff you need to know to get things done right now. Kara uses her short-term memory to remember the last couple of shots she edited together, or what the last notes of the song were. But like a computer's hard drive, the brain's long-term memory is truly impressive. Imagine a database where all of the facts, figures, faces you've ever known, and all the experiences you've ever had are stored. That's your long-term memory. Hold on to your history books. Here comes a body blast from the past.
There are many different types of memory stored all over the brain. The first person to begin mapping this great treasure trove was Canadian surgeon Wilder Penfield. In the 1950s, Dr. Penfield operated on epileptic patients while they were wide awake. When he touched certain areas of their cerebral cortex, he could trigger incredibly vivid memories. One patient heard a song so clearly, he wondered why there was music playing in the operating room.
The cerebrum and cerebellum, with their command of thought and senses, memory and movement, keep life interesting. But the third part of the brain stem, makes life possible. It's what keeps us going every minute of every day.
The brainstem controls some pretty vital stuff, like breathing, heartbeat, blood pressure. Without the brainstem, well, I don't even want to think about it.
That's sort of the point. Those functions are so key to life itself, you never have to think about them.
I'm Dr. Anna Jantz. I'm a neurologist at Children's Hospital.
And I'm Dr. Jeffrey Dermer, a neurologist and neuroscientist at the Hospital University of Pennsylvania.
A neurologist is a doctor who helps people who have problems with their brain or nerves.
As a neuroscientist, I use technology to study the behavior and function of the brain. We see children with multiple problems, including headaches, weakness,
Problems with their behavior,
dizziness,
pain.
and all different problems of the nervous system.
I'm always looking for new ways to protect the brain from damage and to repair any injury that has happened to the brain.
The brain is divided into multiple areas. There's a spinal cord, there's a brainstem, and there are cerebral hemispheres.
The brain also has many blood vessels that course through it. It floats in fluid that we call cerebrospinal fluid, and it is wrapped in a thick covering called the dura. There's no single part of the brain that is more important than any other part of the brain. There are parts of the brain that are duplicated. That is, if one part gets injured, another part can take over its job. There are other parts of the brain that are very super specialized, and if you damage that part of the brain, it cannot be replaced, and no other part of the brain can take its job.
As a child grows, the brain grows and becomes about the same size as an adult brain very early, approximately age 8.
Size does not matter when it comes to the brain. Some of the greatest geniuses in the world have brains that are probably no bigger than your brain. What's more important than size is the connections between the different parts of the brain.
In the brain of a child, there's not as many connections made as in an adult brain. Over time, those connections are made, and there's an increase in the number of cells that we call glia cells, that are the mortar that connect the bricks of the brain, called neurons.
The more you learn, the more connections you have. The best way to keep your brain healthy is to use it. You have to avoid doing drugs. You have to exercise your body to keep your brain healthy, because the things that keep your body healthy are what is going to keep your brain healthy.
The video was really coming together until, equipment breakdown. Oops, it just came unplugged.
Without a connection, Kara's machinery can't communicate. The same is true for your brain. From its connection at the brainstem, the brain communicates with the rest of the body through the spinal cord. The original information superhighway, the spinal cord, is a real bundle of nerves, literally. These nerves constantly carry messages throughout the body. For protection, the spinal cord is surrounded by vertebrae, a solid but flexible shield of bones.
The nerves of the spinal cord are able to communicate with other nerve cells in your body.
Even the nerves on your body's outside edge, or periphery, need to stay in touch. They make up the peripheral nervous system.
If the spinal cord is a highway, then the peripheral nervous system is all the little roads that branch out from it. Two-way streets made up of sensory and motor neurons. They carry information to and from the central nervous system.
Speeding along on billions of nerve cells, electrical messages from sensory neurons blast through the peripheral nervous system to the central nervous system.
In an instant, the brain processes what needs to be done and sends a message back to the body through the motor neurons.
In the brain, the cerebrum controls the things that make humans unique, like speech and reasoning. At the same time, it's processing information from the 5 senses and telling which muscles to move. The cerebellum gives us balance and coordinated movement, while the brainstem works round the clock, regulating our heartbeat and breathing.
Well, maybe my video won't hit the big screen anytime soon, but my audience loved it. I brought together sound and vision, passion and creativity, and put them together in a way that made sense. Not bad for a first-time director.
And action! Good direction and great response. That's what the human brain and the nervous system are all about. They help keep the human body in action.